voter fraud, which is the only thing that ID purportedly addresses, is the intentional voting by somebody who knows they are not entitled to vote. Okay? It is not registering a bunch of people by putting their names, off of a telephone book onto the voter registration polls. Okay? That is a type of dishonest activity, but it is not voter fraud, and it is not addressed by photo ID. Okay? Destroying voter registration forms because you happen not to agree perhaps with the partisan affiliation of the voter. That is dishonest activity. That does occur. That is not voter fraud, and it is not addressed by photo ID. Vote buying. Somebody pays somebody to vote in a particular way. Okay? That is not voter fraud, and that is not addressed by voter ID, photo ID. Stuffing the ballot box. Okay? If you want to take advantage of gaps in the system and throw an election, then what you do is find a way where you can do a little bit more wholesale shifting of votes, like stuffing a ballot box, or alternatively, stashing the ballots in the trunk of your car. Okay? Both of those are illegal activity. They are not voter fraud, and they are not addressed by photo ID. Photo ID addresses one problem: impersonation fraud. You are walking into a polling place and claiming to be somebody who you are not and voting. Now, that's a logistically difficult thing to do because you have to know in advance who's on the registration list that's not going to show up so that you can come in and say that you're that person. It carries a penalty, if you're caught, of up to 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. If you're a non-citizen, you can be deported for doing that. So there are huge disincentives for doing it in order to get one extra vote. Statistically, the American voter is more likely to get hit by lightning than they are to commit impersonation fraud. And that is the only thing that voter ID, photo ID, addresses. Now, real problems, there are real problems. I've mentioned 4 or 5 of them already. Deceptive practices that people have been using, or intimidation techniques, sending out flyers into low-income neighborhoods telling people that they should go to a different polling place than the one that they're actually assigned to, or on a different day than Election Day. Those are real problems. There is a law that has been proposed to address that. That won't be addressed by photo ID either. Hacking an electronic machine, you want to shift an election? That's a good way to do it. It's the modern equivalent of stuffing the ballot box. Okay? There are lots of things that could be done to protect the security of our electronic voting machines. We can prevent the use of wireless components. We can do post-election audits. We can do parallel testing. We have a whole study of the different things that you can do if you're interested in how to protect your electronic voting machines, but photo ID will not do it. Okay? So from my perspective, what we have here is, the proverbial grenade to kill the flea. There's virtually no problem, and the purported solution is far more disenfranchising than the issue that it is supposedly going to address. In a nation where what we have is a fundamental right at stake, it seems to me that if we value it enough the way we value our liberties, we have a presumption of innocence, we should have a presumption of eligibility, and we should be rebutting that presumption only with very clear and concrete evidence that a particular voter is not entitled to vote. We should not be setting up systems, whole systems that disenfranchise categories of people based on allegations of, very generalized allegation of dishonesty, and very little evidence of impersonation fraud.